Okay guys, as part of the project bike build, we went ahead and put on these Ride Engineering 23.5 millimeter offset triple clamps. They're split clamps and they're made awesome. And I was really excited to be able to get them. I've heard great things about it. Really excited to give these ones a test. Got them in and went ahead and installed them. And interestingly enough, noticed that they had shipped this outer race that came with it. But of course, there's already an outer race in the steer tube here on the KTM 350. So I just went ahead and installed the triple clamps like I think anybody would. In fact, I've got a buddy that's got these same triple clamps and he did the exact same thing. But out of curiosity, I called Ride Engineering and said, hey, that extra outer race that you sent, I'm assuming it's okay just to not use that one if my stock race was in good condition. And they said, absolutely not. It's a different taper altogether. And you need to make sure that you give or put the one that we gave you in, take the stock one out. So I got a little ahead of myself. So if you guys are doing that, quite frankly, I'd check with any triple clamp manufacturer to see if that's something that they would recommend doing. But we're here with Kenny now to be able to help correct my mistakes. So we're gonna walk through here how to be able to take it out. There's actually, when I called Kenny, there's quite a few different methods to be able to take the outer race out of the steer tube. And so I contacted Motion Pro and they were kind enough to be able to help set us up with a steer head race puller. And then we've got the steering bearing installer as well. Kenny, you've never used these before, right?
I've never used either one. I've used many methods, but I've never used either of these methods. So I'm excited to try this out.
Yeah, so we're gonna give a first shot at this. So again, installing the Ride Engineering triple clamps, as well as being able to remove the outer race, how to be able to do that, and then how to be able to get them properly installed back in. So let's get this thing ripped apart, Kenny.
Sounds good. So on this Ride Engineering triple clamp, they do send the extra race with it. And like Dave said earlier, he made the mistake of just thinking he could throw it in. I would have done the same thing. They look really close. In fact, the races look almost identical. But what we noticed is, we tried it out just now to see what the fitment difference was. Here's the SKF, here's the OE bearing race. You can see it doesn't quite fit all the way down onto the bearing. It still turns smooth, but when we take the Ride Engineering bearing, you can see it sits slightly lower on the needles, or on the tapered rollers. And it does feel a little bit smoother. It feels like a more solid fitment. So this taper is slightly different. So make sure that if you get the Ride Engineering that you do install the correct bearing race with that. Okay, what I want to demonstrate here, just for ease of film's sake, what I'm going to demonstrate up here on the top. I'm going to show you how this is going to be removed, because the top is actually a mirror image of the bottom. As far as the races are concerned, the steering tube's identical. It's symmetrical side to side. So the way this is going to work is, I'm just going to set the end of the punch in the groove and just strike it and knock it out. And the way you'd want to do this, my punch installed in the cutout so that I can hit right on the race. And when I do this, guys, I actually put some pressure on the punch itself. So I've got it laid. This is why I like this punch. Nice and long, you get a lot of room to work. And I can put a little pressure. I'm actually pulling the punch this way so that it rests against this side of the race. And then it actually applies pressure to the tip of the race where I'm trying to put pressure on, that I'm trying to drive out. That way my punch doesn't move, and I can give a good hard strike and knock it up. And then I'll do the same, and I'll move it to the other side and strike again. We're gonna actually perform this on the lower. I just wanted to show it on the top so you can get a good view of how that's gonna work. So let's see what this looks like. And I'll set it in, get it in position. And now I'm actually applying pressure to the punch sideways, and at the same time I'm going to strike down. And then we'll switch sides.
You don't want to do too many strikes on one side.
No, you don't want to try and you don't want the race to cock too far sideways. You want it to come out
as possible, right?
Yeah, you want it to come out as evenly as possible. Correct. But it only takes a couple of strikes, and it should just pop right out. This is not going to be too difficult. There it is.
Still in good condition.
Yeah, that won't do any damage.
If you needed to use that again,
If you need to use it again, it won't do any damage. This is hardened tool steel. The punch is much softer than this steel is. This is really hard steel. And when you do punch on it, you're punching on this back side of the race. There's no bearing surface here. There's no movement and no moving mated component. That's a seated piece. Okay, now for the install. This is really cool, and I'm excited to use this tool. I've never used this before. Traditionally in the past, I've used a race driver like this, and it's something that you set in, and then you would use a hammer and drive it into position. You'd set it up top and then use a hammer and smack it down, which is okay. It's been working for a long time. It's a great tool. But what I like about this is sometimes when you're using a hammer to knock it in, what'll end up happening is you'll get the race cocked side to side, and you can end up damaging, especially, this is not so common on a steel frame motorcycle, but if you have an aluminum frame motorcycle, it's pretty easy to get it cocked a little bit sideways, and if you're not acute enough and aware of what's happening and you continue to drive, you can actually gouge the inside of your steering head, which is kill your motorcycle, but it's also not good if you want to keep everything perfectly straight and square, which I like to do. And so the steel's not so much because it is a little more resilient to that. It will help it line up. But still, I'm excited to try this Motion Pro tool. Now I've got it set up, and I found the cone that's going to be the correct fitment for the race that we're going to install. It's a nice tight fit. And then Motion Pros set this up really nice so that you don't have to sit and turn your wrench for 3 hours. They have these really nice adjustment, just like a clip lock position. So if you need to make large adjustments, you know, your macro adjustments are here and your micros right here on your nut. So let's show how this goes together. So we're going to install this lower race. We're going to slide it right up into the steering tube, like so, with our correct fitment. Got a little plate that goes up on the top. Now I'm going to move that up one more, just because I want to make sure I have enough thread to grab hold there. I don't recommend putting all the force on there with only a handful of threads. Give it a full nut width of thread there. Now, you just saw me kind of shake that and just kind of get it into position. That's because I want to make sure I have everything squared up. Motion Pro set this up with a nice tapered fitting on the top, so it should self-center. But if you started just cranking on it without giving it a little bit of a shake and kind of letting it fine center, you could force it in on an angle and that would make your steering bind. You could damage the steering tube. So just give it a little bit of a shake. And I think I take a lot of these things for granted because I've been doing it for so long. I do it without even thinking about it. So I'm trying to explain every little step that I do because I know when I do things, I'll throw it together really quick and there's a lot that goes on that probably you wouldn't notice. So let's go ahead and wind this up and see how it pulls that in. That should pull it in really smooth. Hey guys, let's wind this in. We've got it all squared up and ready to pull in. One thing that I noticed as well that Motion Pro puts on the end of here is they give you a bolt attachment on the bottom, because I realize that when you're trying to wind this in, the shaft might try and spin in the center and then you won't make any progress. So you can hold it with the 14 and we're just going to wind that up. And I can feel it right away pulling the bearing race in very smoothly. This is very little effort. It's coming in nice and smooth. And like I said, I actually like this a lot better than trying to drive it in with a hammer, because it eliminates maybe it doesn't completely eliminate, but it greatly reduces the chances of driving the race in on any kind of angle. This is going to take it in really square. And anytime you can pull a bearing rather than try and drive a bearing, it's better. Anytime you can use a press or a puller, it's a far better solution than using a hammer.
Just go till you're tight, or
yep. Once
there's not a torque value, anything like that.
No, and I can feel it, and you'll feel this too whenever you're seating a bearing, whether you're driving it in or whether you're using a puller, you'll feel it bottom, it'll stop. And once you feel it bottom out, it's done. You don't need to go any further. You don't need to try and take it to a, 100 pounds and then release it. It's not going to get any further into the seats. So that was really simple. That was smooth. I give Motion Pro an A on that product. In fact, both products are great. Like I say, it just happened to not work out for the remover on this bike, just because the shape of the steering tube. If it was a different bike, most of the Japanese bikes, that'll work on just fine. So, and it may work on other KTMs. I haven't removed a steering stem on every single KTM either. So, yeah, great job, Motion Pro.